In 2018, our scientists warned us that the world is heading towards heatwaves and Hothouse Earth. As gardeners, we can do our bit to help, but when are our leaders going to start listening? Early civilizations realized the importance of water, creating canals and aqueducts to transport it over great distances. And here you see a brilliant example in the Pont du Gard near Avignon in Provence. And here we can see another example of a natural spring being harnessed to supply farmland in East Anglia, which is one of the driest areas in the UK. It has a recorded rainfall which is equal to that of the Mediterranean. To help protect the soil against the winter rains and to improve the soil structure, cover crops or green manures are grown. Here we are back in France for a moment, looking across a fertile valley floor which grows a wide range of crops. The main source of water here isn't a spring, but a river, which gives the area a reliably high water table. This reduces the need for excessive irrigation. Now, as all gardeners know, plants can be like cats and a law to themselves. And no matter how much we try and create warm, comfortable growing conditions, plants will always grow in the most hostile environment possible. If you tried to sow a seed here, it just wouldn't germinate. And this must be the inspiration for many a roof garden. You couldn't repeat it if you tried. Hard landscaping the natural way. But of course there are fissures in the rocks and cracks that allow the water to drain down to the valley floor. And as it does this, it waters the vegetation. And I think we should take this into account when we're designing gardens now. Porous surfaces, as well as allowing moisture to pass through, absorb heat, and this greatly reduces the heat strain to plants, which once again increases their water requirement. Rain is always the first choice for gardeners. It's delivered free of charge, doesn't contain any harmful chemicals. What is there not to like? Most of the early monasteries and castles were always located where there was a reliable source of fresh water. This meant sinking a well or tapping into a spring. Later on there was a village pump and horse trough, but most large gardens had a dipping pond in them somewhere, and the water would be transported around to where it was required by means of a water carrier. Due to the lack of pressure, all the watering had to be done by hand. Watering cans can only supply a relatively small quantity of water before they need refilling, but they are excellent for using in a greenhouse or a small garden. The arrival of mains water, supplied under pressure, brought about the development of the rubber hosepipe. This freed the gardener of the chore of having to carry water back and forth. But hosepipes also have their limitations. They are heavy when full of water and have to be dragged around, potentially causing damage to plants and pots. Splits, leaking connections, and a long walk back to the tap to turn the water off can all waste precious water. Over time as well, the hose pipes become stiff, kinked, and difficult to put by safely. Always check the soil before watering. A dry surface doesn't necessarily mean the soil is dry underneath. Most surface watering will evaporate before it ever reaches the plant's roots. Seep hoses, or porous pipes as they are sometimes known, have holes along them that allow water to gently ooze through into the soil. They can be treated as a permanent fixture and buried 5 to 10 centimetres, 2 to 4 inches underneath the soil. This will also extend their life by protecting them from the harmful sun's rays. You can lay them out on the surface of the soil in one continuous line, holding them in place as staples. And if you wanted to, you could also cover them with Mypex or something similar to trap the moisture underneath. By formally training the plants and so restricting their growth, you can reduce the branch and leaf network, which in turn reduces the irrigation load. It doesn't mean you get less crop, it just means you have a much more compact plant. This is more efficient use of water and space. And as you can see here, there is a lot of permanent planting, which means that the plants already have well-established root systems, and eventually they will grow close together, and that will add extra shade to the soil. This system allows each pot to receive an equal amount of water. It requires regular inspection though to ensure that no connections or drippers are damaged, leading to water wastage. Try to adopt a less dig policy if possible. Constant digging disrupts the beneficial soil flora and fungi, leading to poor structure and water holding capacity. Adopt a program of applying a 5 to 10 centimetre, 2 to 4 inch layer of organic matter all over the soil to conserve moisture and to build up soil structure. Collect and stack deciduous leaves to produce valuable leaf mould that you can use as a soil conditioner. But take care when poking round inside the stack. Hedgehogs love to use them as their overwintering nests. We mentioned cover crops earlier. They can be sown as soon as summer crops are cleared to protect the bare soil against the heavy rains of winter. This is an example of a grass and clover lay sown to improve the soil structure, but treated as a lawn until required. Annual flower and vegetable plants grown from seeds sown in the spring will always need more watering because they will have immature root systems. Design and plant your garden to cope with hot, dry conditions by using plants that will require a minimum of watering. Plants in pots and containers tend to dry up more quickly, so check on them daily. Test to see if they need watering by just pushing your finger into the compost down about an inch, 2.5 centimetres. If it feels damp, there's no need to water. You could try adding water retaining gel to the compost as well. This will help reduce your watering requirement. Deep watering encourages roots to grow down into the lower soil levels where the conditions are constantly cool and moist, much more comfortable for the roots. Puddling is the first stage in this process. Excavate the plant hole and fill it up with water. It is suitable for all types of plants, from trees and shrubs right the way down to vegetables and flower transplants. You want to see the water drain away slowly but steadily. It is also the ideal way to identify the soil type that you may have. Sandy and gravelly soils have poor water holding properties and they will drain quite quickly. Any organic matter dug into them is broken down quite rapidly, so it's better to spread any compost or manure over the surface of the soil in the spring before the soil starts to dry out. Clay soils are considered to be heavy and cold because they can hold up to 30 times their weight in water. Keep off them when they are wet, but once again spread organic matter over the surface, and this will help to improve their texture over time. Because clay soils are water holding and fertile, they're ideal for growing roses and oak trees. Loam is the Rolls Royce of the soil world. It has just the right soil to humus balance, but it would always benefit from a layer of mulch to conserve moisture and to replace the organic matter in the soil as it breaks down over time. Some of the water will also leach sideways into the soil as well as draining downwards. This will encourage the roots to scavenge for nutrients and moisture. Shallow surface watering keeps the roots near the soil surface, making them vulnerable to overheating and drying out. I won't have to water this plant again for at least a week. The water has completely drained away now. We can see we are ready for planting. Water the plant the night before transplanting day and a couple of hours before the actual planting time. Then have a quick inspection of the condition of the roots, and before finally planting, make sure the hole is still big enough to take the plant. Cats love soft soil, so you may want to protect the plant against any rogue watering or fertilizing. All new transplants need some TLC to help them establish, and here we can see a neat trick. Build up a soil wall to form a crater that will hold the water and let it slowly drain down into the soil. When you water in pots, carefully fill them up to the rim and allow the water to drain through. And then at the end, just lift them up to make sure that the water is running at the hole at the bottom. Watering cans can be directed right at the target area. You can get underneath the canopy and only water the plant root zone. It also helps the surrounding areas to stay dry, which helps with weed control. Don't be tempted to overpot plants either. Young seedlings and transplants need time to develop their root systems. By the time that the roots reach the outer edges of the larger pot, the compost will already turn sour. During the day, the stones absorb the sun's heat, preserving the soil moisture underneath, and at night they release their heat, just like a solar heater, helping the plants to survive low temperatures and frosts. Diolch, and thank you for watching. Goodbye for now, but if you would like to see any more, please hit the subscribe and like buttons.